I think I found that the best way to start podcasts is to start from the beginning and figure out how you got into this world. And, just, and then also if you could kind of explain for people that are not familiar with your sport a little bit about what it is. I mean, it seems self-explanatory, but there's a lot more that goes into it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Lael. I'm from Alaska. I always did sports growing up, but I just rode a bike like around my neighborhood, just kind of kid stuff until I was in college. I got a job and it was 4 miles away and I had to get there. I've never owned a car. I've never driven. So I got a bike as like my first vehicle because I was like, oh, it's too far to walk. Got to get a bike. So I started riding to and from work. And just doing that, I was like, oh my gosh, if I could ride to work, I could ride all over the city. I could ride to the next city to visit my sister. And this was in probably 2006 or so. And then like on that first long ride, which was something like 40, 50 miles, I'd never done anything like that. I was like, I don't even think I could make it. While I was riding, I was like, if I could ride to the next city, I could ride across the country. So within a couple months, I was doing that. And it just like kind of took over my life where I was like, I just want to travel on my bike. I want to connect the dots, see all of the US by bike. And then that led me to traveling in Europe and South Africa and the Middle East. And I was working at restaurants and bike shops to save money for half the year and then go travel for the other half. But I didn't really see it as a sport. I was just like, oh, it's a really inexpensive way to travel. And it just like, it never got old, just to see the way people lived and to spend all that time outside, spend all that time thinking. So that was kind of my intro into the sport. And then while I was riding, I was always looking for interesting places to go. And so a lot of the resources were finding like these race routes. So bike pack racing, which is what I do, is like basically like racing across long distances, self-supported. Everyone starts together. Whoever gets to the end point first wins. So some of these races can take weeks. Like I've raced across the US from Oregon to Virginia, raced down the Rockies from Canada to Mexico. And I was riding these routes just to travel. And then I ended up on a trip in Israel and realized I'd still be in the country when they were hosting the race. And I was like, well, why not? I'll just give it a shot. And I was the only woman. I just had my, very kind of low end touring bike and setup and a cotton t-shirt. And these guys thought I was just a total joke. They're like, what are you doing here? And I was like, well, I don't know. I just want to try it out. And then by the end of the first day, I was winning the whole race by like 25 miles. And they were like, what? Like, how are you doing that? What are you doing? And I was so excited. And I was just like, kind of found the thing that I was like, that I'm actually good at. I just had no idea I could do that because I'd never raced before. So this was like 7 years ago. And then since then, I've just been kind of riding and racing and fitting in as many different things as I can, but all on the bike. And it's just been so cool to, kind of meet people around the world and see places just by bike and kind of make my own connection. So right now I'm in Spain. I finished a 900-mile road race 2 days ago. So I totally lost my voice. But it was so cool. It was like these guys that are locals in Catalonia asked, hey, can you come do our race? And it's the first year. And they have so much heart for it. And they just basically made this route in the Pyrenees and all of Catalonia, which is kind of northeastern Spain, just to show the places that they love the most. And I mean, what a gift for me to like come from the US and just be able to go do that and see these places and get to know these people. And in a place I've never been here before. I'd never ridden my bike in Spain. So it's been super cool, but I'm definitely toast. So exhausted.
Yeah, I bet. So when you say self-supported, right? You've got a tent, you've got your, can you take us through kind of some of your gear? I'm assuming it's got to be you're in the ultralight camp, the ultralight way of things.
The thing is, there aren't like any rules of what you need to bring or don't need to bring. So it's like, but you can't get any help along the way. So you couldn't have like a friend bring you equipment. You can't stay at somebody's house, but you can use like open resources. So like hotels, restaurants, shops, that kind of thing. Like you can use something that's available to anybody. So people make different strategies on what they bring. This past ride, I brought like a bivy, which is basically just a plastic bag to sleep in, a sleeping bag and a sleeping pad. My friend that was racing only brought like a space blanket. And I was like, oh God, that's rough.
How did that work
because you're
out?
sleeping on the ground. So you get cold. She's like, well, I can sleep for about 40 minutes and then I'd have to get moving because you just start shaking. I've done that before too. I'm like, oh, it's so light. And then you like, at night, you're like shaking on the ground. You're like, well, that wasn't worth it. So you kind of have to figure out what you actually need and what you don't need. But of course, you want it to be as light as possible because it's going to be faster, especially up all the climbs. I mean, this past race, we climbed 80,000 feet.
Jeez.
Everest is like 27,000. It's like we're doing like 3 Everests.
Yeah. Well, how are you fueling your body during this? What are you training for these races? What are you doing?
I just ride. I ride all the time, so I'm always pretty much ready to go. But then, the food thing is pretty interesting because you have to find it along the way. So then you really find out what's available in different countries. Like in Spain, they have these amazing Spanish tortillas, like the egg and potato dish. So I would just buy those and just be eating them on my bike. I would buy like pints of ice cream and then carry it, let it melt and drink it. And I was like, oh, that's delicious.
Oh man, I love you. This is great.
Because you can't eat enough. It's like I would like look and be like, you burned like 14,500 calories today. It's like there's no way you could eat that much. No. But basically, you eat as much as you can, and then you eat a lot afterward, and it works out.
Yeah, definitely. Are you just shedding weight during these races? And how depleted are you how depleted are you towards the end? What is going to keep you going? Where does your mind get to towards the end of a race? Is it in a dark place?
No, because it's like I decided to be out there, so it's like it still has to be fun. And the other part of these races is generally there's no entry fee and there's no prize money. So it's like you're not going to win anything. You're just out there for the sport of it, because you want to be there. So it's like, there are hard moments, but like I try not to sink too far into the negativity. Are you guys still there?
Yeah. Can you hear us? Yeah, there was a little bit roboted out for a second, but you're good now.
But the longer the race, kind of the more depleted you get. Really, the worst part probably is the sleep deprivation, because it's like you kind of have to cut sleep, spend more time riding. There's no real way to make up that time. So,
no, definitely.
And that's super unhealthy. Not sleeping is like the worst thing you could possibly do for yourself. So,
how many hours are you on the bike?
I try to like eat all my meals while riding. But
you do?
Yeah. So I'm like eating like a burger and I'm just pedaling along. Anything you can take to go. But then it's like, I do have to sleep. I also have to like get off my bike to pee. I have to like change my clothes, but the thing is like trying to be efficient with time. So doing like multitasking, spending as much time riding as possible. But then it's like, it's always a strategy of like, when and where are you going to sleep? Where are you going to buy food? All these things kind of come into consideration. And I've been doing this for, I guess, 7 years now. And I used to like really cut the sleep, and I've kind of gone back to like, I try to sleep like 4 hours a night if I can, because I just feel so much better. I ride faster. I enjoy it so much more, so I've kind of found a balance there.
So you think you're riding for like what, 20 hours a day, maybe? Maybe
18. Because, it's like then there's all these other moments of, you have to go in the shop or you get a flat tire or whatever, and you have to deal with that, which sucks.
So if your bike breaks down, you're self-supported. You need to fix that. So are you bringing tools as well?
A bit, but not too much. Because it's like you can't bring everything, but it's like enough. Like usually the main thing is like keeping air in your tires, because like a lot of the other stuff, if it doesn't work perfectly, you can still keep moving. Like, your shifting's not great, your brakes, something's going on. But then like this past race, I was riding through a tunnel at 1 a.m. and I hit a huge pothole. Immediately, both my tires just went dead flat. Like I slammed down on the rims. And it was like in the dark, and I was like, oh no, like I'm in the middle of nowhere. And then I had to like sit on the side of this huge tunnel for an hour and a half, just trying to fix them. And the tires were like torn, the tubes were torn. I was like trying to patch them, and it was on a road bike, so you have to run pretty high pressure because they're pretty skinny tires. I got it to like basically like beach ball pressure. I was like, good enough. I was like, I'll just keep going. I'll like try to find a bike shop because I have to buy new tires. Like I still have like, I don't know, 350 miles to go. I was like, I'm not going to make it to the finish on this, but at least I can move forward. And so basically I did that road for like another 3 hours, slept for an hour on the side of the road, and then got up in the morning and found a bike shop, and they had what I needed. I had to wait for an hour outside for them to open. I was like, because everything in Spain, like they all sleep in.
Oh,
they like take naps in the afternoon. Like nothing's ever open. You're like, oh God. But they don't know I'm racing. You know, they're just like, I mean, that's the fun part, is they're just like going through their normal life. And then you show up and you're like, hey, I'm racing. I need help. And then like the mechanic guy was like, he got so excited. He's like, I'm going to race next year. And so he like wrote the organizers. He's like all in, you know, again, that's the cool part, is like, you don't have to qualify for these races. You could just show up, you know? Yeah. And so you get like such a random group of people.
I bet. Well, you're definitely going to attract some amazing odd characters in a race like this, because this is not something that everyone would do. It seems like a lot of fun, and it seems like a great community. That is wild. So what, like, you